Love is what we give when we receive, so keep it burning. Gift your soul and let it be. Soon you'll find your gift of legacy. I'm ready to color my world, ready to give to you. I'm ready to color my world, ready to give to you.
Faith will keep you strong where you belong. Just believe it. Dreams to help you grow, to reap and sow. You receive it.
So gift your soul and let it be. Soon you'll find your gift of legacy. I'm ready to color my world, ready to give to you. I'm ready to color my world, ready to give to you.
Hello and good evening to everybody. While we are just waiting for my co-pilots, I don't see Ellen here, I can see Mpho. Mpho. I'm so excited to be chatting with you this evening. But let me know where you are dialing in from. I see a lot of familiar names. I see Winky and Bomi and Eddie and Philip and Debbie and Heidi, and Corin, and Will, just to name a few. It's always so lovely to see the good old faithfuls that have been with us from the very, very beginning. So let me know where you are dialing in from. George, are you still in Portugal or are you back in Spain? Oh, it's so beautiful there. Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Well, I must say, in South Africa, in Cape Town, the Western Cape, it is so warm. I was sitting in the sun today, actually working up a sweat. It's been such a blessing to have such an amazing sunny skies. We've had like rain a couple of times and then it's really poured, so we're not in a drought. It's really wonderful. Okay, there's Ellen, and let me just spotlight myself, and then our wonderful guest. Let me find her quickly. There she is. I'm going to ask you to start your video and then I can spotlight you. Okay, Ellen, I need to make you co-host. Give me 1 second. There we go. Awesome. And let me do the same for...
How are you?
I'm good, and I'm so happy that it's just the beginning and there's already 46 people on. And
Yay.
if it's baby, to get back to 1,000, I'm willing to take baby steps. Sometimes you have to start all over again to get a new perspective, and it's all good. I will always show up even if there's just 10 people on, because it's my commitment to you guys. And I know that even if there's 10 people live, there could be more on YouTube, and then the airtime that it gets after that all depends on how many times it's shared. But it's worth it in the end. Even if one person gets one thing, it still means a lot to me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That's kind of interesting that you say that. I find that there's a text promoting is probably the best possible thing you can do. When we do it here in the US, if I just do a WhatsApp or a Telegram, I get about half of the attendance if I send out a text. A text, people, yeah, I've monitored it in a few different things. So text by all means. And I don't know if that's possible, where you guys are, but there is an app called Reach, REACH, and it's like $10 a year. And it allows you to send one text, but it looks like you've sent hundreds of them. And it's kind of cool. So you do have to push the go button every single time, but it's a lot less expensive than some of the text promoting that's out there. But it really does make a big difference, at least here. It's like people pay attention to text. It's like, I beg of you, please check the WhatsApp thread. So I only have to do this once. But oh my gosh.
So interesting. It's completely the opposite in South Africa. Nobody reads texts. Yeah, we get spam with texts. So I never go into my texts unless I'm looking to see for a payment that I made with my card or something like that. So interesting how different the cultures are. We love WhatsApp.
So it is so interesting. That's one of the most lovely things that I've gotten to learn from the things that we're doing is that, I'll admit it, the United States has a tendency to think the world revolves around it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, but I've worked with a lot of people from a lot of different places, before this in regular businesses. And this is when it was brought to my attention, mostly people from London and Ireland. And they said, and it opened my eyes to that. So that's something I try and teach in our group too, is that, hey, contrary to popular belief, there is a place outside the United States called the world, and they do things a little bit differently, and we can learn from that. And it's a joy, actually, honestly. It's to me, I find it so interesting in the various ways that people do different things that we just don't think about, because we all get on autopilot, don't we? And we sort of think in our lanes, and I guess that's what it means to become cultured, is to realize that hey, there's more than a million ways to navigate a situation, and different cultures do things differently. So I love that about this so much.
But it's so interesting that you brought up the whole texting or ways of communicating, because today we actually had a meeting to find a central place, because we were looking at bulk SMSs, but with the amount of people that we've got on Gift of Legacy, it's going to be quite expensive. Think about like just sending a message to do a password retrieval. If everybody does it once a day, it's quite a bit. So we are looking at a communication, a way of communicating with the whole of our Gift of Legacy community. So watch the space. It should happen in the next month or so. And then we will have one central place where we can get to every single person. And that's not necessarily only with email. So very, very exciting.
Sweet.
Yes. Okay, so this evening, I am very excited to introduce Mpho. And that is because I met her a year ago. I was actually looking through our texts and I realized that we met on the 29th, actually the 27th of May, and then she helped my dreams come true on the 29th of May last year. But I met Mpho through our beautiful Ningi, who gave testimony a couple of weeks ago. And I remember Ningi speaking the world of Mpho and, only wanting to bring her into something that she could really trust and rely on, because she didn't want to bring her into anything that could be a disappointment. And I met her because she landed on the precursor program. She landed on my $1,000 board, and she gifted me $1,000 on the 29th of May last year. So we chat every now and then, and she was saying, I love the fact that you've moved education to a Wednesday. It's wonderful. A lot of us can't attend Saturdays, but I've got so much to share and I can't make a Wednesday. So I said, well, she told me about a few things that she wanted to talk about. And I said, are you free tomorrow night? Because that sounds absolutely incredible. And it really complements the guest that we have on Monday. On Monday, we've got Monita, who's part of our community as well. And she is a money magician. She's going to share a lot with you guys on Monday. But she's going to be talking about your money type. So, you know, you get personality types. She's going to be talking about your money type. You actually get to do a quiz, but you'll identify with them anyway while she's talking about them. And then she also shows you how you can move from being one type into a more positive type and how you will improve your relationship with money. So Mpho is going to be complementing that because she is going to be talking about syndromes. And I think the name that I wrote has piqued a bit of interest because somebody said to me, but what is a syndrome? I said, well, you have to come to the Zoom call and find out. So I am not going to take any longer to introduce you. And I'm just so happy to have you here. And so happy that you can share some stories with us and how they relate to syndromes. And then, of course, how it all relates to gift of legacy in one way or another. So welcome.
Well, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on where you are. It's evening, definitely in South Africa. Thank you very much, Candz, for that introduction. Yeah. I still remember when I had to send you that $1,000, I was trembling, not because I didn't want to send it, but because I did not want to make a mistake on your account. And I thought, if I get one digit wrong, where am I going to get the other 1,000 rand from? Anyway, tonight I'm very happy to talk about these syndromes. These are not syndromes in a medical term, or in the medical sense, or anyhow. I'm going to actually tell stories, folklore stories from my own country of origin, which is Lesotho, a small country completely landlocked by South Africa, the kingdom in the sky. All stories are not true unless I say this one is true. So we grew up being told these stories. Our parents would tell us stories, but I used some of these stories in training when I was in sales, because I kind of listened to these stories again and I thought, hey, I think there's a syndrome here. So the word syndrome is something that I placed there, okay? And if it doesn't make sense to anybody as a syndrome, well, for the purposes of tonight, it better do. Okay, so we grew up being told these stories by our parents, as a form of training. At the end of the story, it would be time to unpack the implications for us as children. And then they would ask us, what is the moral of the story? So I'm going to do that with you this evening and hope that we can have fun doing so. There is nothing new in what you're going to hear from the side of the gift of legacy. Nothing at all. You are going to hear everything that you know in the context of Basotho humor. And if the humor is too dry for you, please do forgive us. Forgive my ruse. But these are the stories that made me and many other Basotho children who we are today. So here goes the first one. And this I have called Makwanyane syndrome. The Basotho nation was founded by a very wise king, Moshoeshoe. We are told that the king had a worker named Makwanyane who was very, very loyal to him. There was nothing more important to Makwanyane than serving the king, a thing for which he was envied by his peers. Makwanyane had one problem though. His enthusiasm did not make him one of the best listeners around. In the middle of an instruction, Makwanyane would just take off in high speed into the implementation phase of the instruction, and then he would have to come back several times to the instructor to get more details in order to complete the task. So in cases where he was given a task to perform away from the royal crawl, it would even be a bigger challenge, as our candidate would have to travel back and forth to get the rest of the specifications of the task. So the king devised a plan. Our wise king Moshoeshoe. Makwanyane would be tied to a tree, and then he would be given an instruction at that time. He would be asked a few questions just to make sure that he had gotten the full story. Then he would be released from the tree so that he can run and take a message wherever he had to take it. Now, in two such cases, the instruction was for him to visit the mission house and announce to the missionaries that a baby boy was born to the royal family. In the first instance, after announcing the arrival of the royal son to the missionaries, he paused to get the response, because now the missionaries have to give him the name, because Mshosho wanted them to name the child. There was a brief silence as the men of the caller had to think properly before honoring the request of the king with a name. One of the missionaries, aware that his colleagues were very silent for a while, he turned to them and he said, let's hear. And before he could finish his sentence, Makwanyane took off. He ran back to the royal crawl. And the poor missionary apparently wanted to hear some suggestions from the colleagues before a final answer could be reached. Okay? Now, while the missionaries were still pondering the meaning of the premature departure of the bearer of the great news, back at the royal crawl, guess what was happening? Makwanyane was reporting that the missionaries were very happy to hear the news about the arrival of the boy, and they proposed the name to be Let's Hear, and it became Let's Hear, because then Basotho Sotofied it. Then the name of the boy became Let's Hear. That is how come in Lesotho, our current king is Lesotho III. There were other princesses that were named Lesotho. Well, there was the Lesotho I and then Lesotho II. This one is the Lesotho III. So this is how we ended up with King Lesotho. The second instance was very similar to the first. This time, after Makwanyane had announced the arrival of yet another prince and waited for the response of the missionaries, one of them happily exclaimed, looking at Makwanyane and saying, then he says to Makwanyane, you say so. And then Makwanyane took off, and the missionaries was looking at the other missionaries to say, okay, so what was the name going to be? But Makwanyane had already run off to the royal crawl, and he was already reporting to the king that the name of the boy was supposed to be Say So, And again, we have one of the royal princes. Even today, we still use that name, Say So. Okay, so now we're going to look at what the moral of the story is. And I hope some people are thinking this is funny. And if they have caught anything, I think they can put in the chat, and then Candz and Alan can look out for the comments or what they think they have picked from the story that I have just told. But I'm just going now to tell you a little bit about then what issues come up as they relate to the gift of legacy. So that is what I call the Makwanyane syndrome. There are many other things that we learned about this personality, which I cannot tell you here, but really this is the stories that we grew up being told. So what is the GL, the gift of legacy moral of the story? The most important thing here is take time to listen. We are presented with an opportunity that has a huge potential of making a lasting impact for generations to come. The gift of legacy could generate an inheritance for our lineages. Ask questions, seek for clarity, and then only get to the next phase of the task that is facing us in the community. So that is point number one. It is, however, very important, that we all get clarification on all expectations, terms, and conditions of how the community operates and how the community tools work when we make that voluntary decision to join the community or not to join. Enthusiasm is very good. The Makwanyani enthusiasm, we all want it, but it is very important that we get clarification. We ask questions and we do not take decisions until we are really well informed, because we see that once we are in, there are mistakes that could have been prevented if we had listened and we had sought for clarification and so on before then we took a decision. Now, if we join, we then need to implement carefully and wait for results. We should not expect results that are contrary to what we have not done. We have to do something, do our part, and we all know what it takes in the gift of legacy community. We have to also practice a lot of patience for the processes, and then we will get the promise. And I'm sharing some of these things because I mean, on the boards, we see really the chats, you know, as people get irritated, they lose patience, and they end up saying very unkind things to one another. So I am saying, community, family, please let us be patient and understand that we are all at different stages, but we will all get the promise if we wait our turn. So then when we have done all that, we will be able to give correct feedback to those who have invited us, as well as those that we are inviting, because there are two things here. We have to keep inviting people. We would not want our community to be full of people who are enthusiastic, but are not well informed. We have to understand everything, how it works. It really is a simple system that requires all of us to just privately invite 2 people who will also do the same. We cannot skip that understanding. It's very important. We do not hide our community. We do not hide that our community grows that way. You know, that really is something that grows our community, and we have to be very strong on it. If we come onto the board and we are not doing anything, then the board will not be full and it will not move. So if you are disappointed that it doesn't move, it's because we didn't listen at the very beginning. Maybe we were too enthusiastic. We joined prematurely before we understood, and then we are meeting some disappointments. Okay, we need to invite people who are willing to spend time on their profiles and do all the work that is required. People who are willing to learn the technology and engage different ways of gifting and receiving. People who understand that giving is unconditional. And this is really, I don't know how it is happening in your space, but I find that people really should understand that it is unconditional. It is not an investment. So you cannot say because it hasn't worked or it's not working, which it is, but you can't say, can I have my money back? This is not an investment. It is not a multi-level marketing type of thing. There are no commissions, just giving and receiving, period. Now Makwanyane can run and take the message. Okay. Okay, what I wanted to share there was that, you know, it's a full package, beloved. We cannot choose what we want and leave out what we don't want. The boards are moved when people bring in new people and when those who are in the system join perpetual boards. You know, and I think I will mention this again a little bit later in another context. So let us not work against the system. Let us not work against the community. In his wisdom, even the Christ, you know, said a kingdom that is divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house or home divided against itself, it shall not stand. So let us be clever, let us be wise, let us be diligent and do what we are supposed to do. What is our point of action here? It is to encourage our invitees to attend Zoom meetings. If they are not able to listen to the recordings, because everything is very well explained there. I wasn't going to make a presentation this evening, but I really just felt, let me bring these things in the context of the syndrome of Makwanyane to our community. Okay. Then secondly, and very importantly, we have to join perpetual boards. I had Candz talking one day and I was really surprised by that. But since that, I have talked to people who said, no, I didn't want to go into the silver board. I just collected the $100 gifts, and then that was it, because I had some fears. So we are sabotaging ourselves if we do that. So let us listen, let us do what is required. This actually is fun. I mean, what is the fun of wanting to keep $800 when you can keep $49 perpetually? It doesn't make sense to me. Okay, let's leave Makwanyane and visit the second one before I keep quiet. And
I was Makwanyane in the beginning. When I first heard about gifting, I gave my sacred yes straight away, because I just knew that it was going to change the world. And off I went with this enthusiasm. And as I was speaking to the two people that I really thought would join me, as the words were coming out of my mouth, I could hear I was being salesy. I could hear that I was completely doubting myself. And to this day, the two people that I approached in the beginning are the two people that still have not joined me on this journey, even though I showed success. It's so true where they say first impressions last, because I gave them a bad impression of the space, and to this day they haven't trusted. So don't be like Makwanyane, because it's very important to listen.
And run before you understand all the implications. Don't.
I love that.
We should have tied you to the tree. We should have tied you to the tree, Candz.
Exactly.
You know, I love the story as well. As a matter of fact, I'd love for you to talk to my group, because in America, we have a phrase that sums that entire story up. It's called ready, shoot, aim. And that it's just a little backwards. And everything that you bring up was so on point. And again, just to bounce off what Candz said, it was interesting. One of my fellow members in our group was asking me yesterday, he goes, well, how do you approach people? You know, I can't, that question is so difficult to answer, because I promise you that I approach them different than Mpho or Candz or anybody else. And when you said, Candz, that you were pitchy, I call it pitchy, when you were salesman-y, it doesn't work. And it just doesn't work. You have to be yourself. There's no secret sauce to getting someone to see it. I'm taking notes like crazy. So if you see my eyes go off and I'm typing, it's because I'm taking notes on the stories. I love the stories. But you know, you have to speak from your heart. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be open as to why this was attractive to you. And you have to make sure that when they join, it's their decision to join. There's no forcing anybody to join here. I mean, if they don't see it, they don't see it. It's just that simple, and it's okay. You know, we used to tell a story. I used to own a roofing company. Thank goodness I don't do that anymore. And I'd say, you know, I'd talk to some of my friends and I'd say, don't you want to be in the roofing business, man? You can make a lot of money. And they'd say no. And I'd say, okay. But for whatever reason, you know, and that's okay. But for whatever reason, we, you know, take a little bit too much ownership in something like this, and our feelings are hurt because our friends don't want to come along. Look, not everybody's a roofer. Not everybody is going to like to do what we're doing here. I can say this in this community wide open. I don't know why, because there's so much here that's so far and above the money. The whole thing is fun. Just meeting people around the world is incredible. There's zero risk. When you said people that don't want to join the silver board, I'm like, huh? I mean, really? Why not?
Sounds crazy, but it happens.
I haven't had that experience yet, but I'm sure it's on the way now that I've not knocked on wood. So I'm enjoying this tremendously. So good. So good.
Well, thank you very much for that. I just saw a comment here, one of the comments, someone saying, I don't tell people anything, I just invite them to the Zoom meetings. Clearly, that is what we do, you know. We don't try and make a presentation out there, but you should still create interest, enough interest for the person to want to come into the Zoom meeting. You know, one of the things that I learned, and again, I'm going to give away another, maybe to make that point, to give away another syndrome, which I call the monkey syndrome. I don't know how true this is, but I learned that when Mr. Monkey goes out looking for bananas, he will go to a banana tree and take a banana, open the armpit and put a banana under his armpit and run to the next banana, take it, and then open the armpit and put the banana in there. In the process, the first banana is dropping. So the process goes on until when he goes back home, he actually has one banana that he has harvested for the day, you know. And I thought, you know, everything that I have learned from my past life, I should actually implement it as much as possible within the gift of legacy space. So one of the things I'm just responding to when you say, you know, you can't say this is how to approach people because I'm not you, you're not me. Right. But I tell you, one of the things, you know, in South Africa, we are big on attending funerals, for instance. If I go to a funeral, I meet a friend I have not seen for a long while, and they ask me, I haven't seen you for a long time. What are you up to? I think that's it. That is the question I was waiting for, you know. So then I can tell them that, you know, I'm actually doing something very interesting. You might want to listen to it. I'll send you something. Either I'll say that, or I'll say, come to a Zoom meeting or whatever. But that is for me still one of the very big approaches. And I've just used a funeral here, but there are many events that we attend. And usually you will meet somebody there that you haven't seen for a long time. And my Makwanyani enthusiasm there does not go to sleep. I just go on and on and on. At the supermarkets, the malls, we call them these days, you know, I will just see a little baby, you know, toddler running, and I will just start playing. And I know they say they teach children not to talk to strangers, but I tell you, I'm big with toddlers. I run a little bit and play with them, and they are hiding behind their parents, and I start talking to them. And then I turn to the parents, say, how old are we here? And any plans for education? Are you ready? And then we talk, and I say, you know, there's something that I'm doing which actually may just help you with the education of your child. I know that we are very particular about where we want to take our children for education. We are all chasing good education, and education is very, very expensive. Can be very expensive in South Africa if you want really very good quality. I'm not speaking against government institutions, but it is very, I mean, it's a well-known fact that when you take your children to private schools, then they get better tuition. Yeah. So all sorts of things, you know, my what you call him, Makwanyani enthusiasm is really, yeah, ahead of me many times. Candz?
Yes, I want to hear the next story, Mpho.
The next one is about Abuti Mahlomola. This is the Mahlomola syndrome. In Lesotho, again, as we grew up, boys looked after animals at the expense actually of going to school, you know. The situation has changed a lot now, but it really was like that when I grew up. As a result, when I was a temporary teacher myself, after completing my high school, I went into classroom teaching. I can tell you there were men in my classroom who were, you know, bearded and threatened me as their teachers. Some of them were my age mates because really they took a lot of time taking care of animals, not going to school. So Mahlomola started primary school quite late. He was in grade 1 at 18 years of age. hence, then Abuti Mashomola is acknowledged, you know, when I say Abuti, it's an acknowledgement of his age, you know, it's a respect type of thing, you know, to the, like you're saying Mpho, in Lesotho would say to a big boy, Abuti. So they call him Abuti Mashomola, okay. So now he gets to grade 1 and has to repeat it because he's just not doing well academically, unfortunately. So of particular challenge to him is the arithmetic timetable. Some of the people sitting in the call may not even know what that is, but we grew up then doing what we called times table. 2 times 1 is, you know, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, and so on. We used to recite these things, so that's how we learned them. But as we recited them, we added this rhythm, you know, and Abuti Mashomola was really loving the rhythm. And as far as he was concerned, this was a song, not a reciting of a times table. So whenever the teacher asked him to do the times 2 table, Abuti Mashomola would respond, please excuse me for leading that song, madam. I actually don't know how to do it. Just ask one of the little ones to start it, and I will provide accompanying melody and rhythm. And to this, a little boy maybe or a girl would start, 1 times 1 is 1. And then Mashomola would just start and sing according to him, okay? So this 1 year, Abuti Mashomola had already reached, you know, he had already reached his 20s and he was still in grade 1. So each year he was perplexed to see the small children coming into the class and proceeding to the next class the following year. As far as he was concerned, this was not a good practice. The small ones needed to join him and settle in this class, you know, as he had done so many years himself. Once in a while, when the teacher would have to leave her class, she would ask Mashomola to keep order in the classroom. And then the little ones would take advantage of the absence of the teacher and start to be unruly. Shut up. You know, Mashomola would really be very upset with them. You children, shut up, be still. You are very troublesome. That is why you come into this room and you stay only for 1 year. You children must learn from me. I came here 6 years ago and I'm still here. You must do the same. That is, you know, the story of Mashomola goes on and on and on. But I want to leave it here because the main thing is that he found settling in the classroom for many years as a good thing, you know. And he found fault with those that came in and left him in the classroom. So, needless to say that every year he would remain in the same class while the little ones proceeded. And what is the moral of the story here? Staying at one place is not funny. We need to balance that. While we are saying the enthusiasm of Mashomola is not good, you know, without staying and seeking clarity, but also we cannot stay in one place for too long. Staying at one place is not funny, our Nigerian sisters and brothers would say. We must move and explore possibilities. We must be comfortable leaving our comfort zones and growing into new ways of saving and new ways of even investing our gifts. If we stop growing, someone has said, we start dying. That's just the way it is. There is no sitting on the fence. We have to keep moving. We have to keep finding new ways of doing things. We have to be creative, you know. So who is Abuti Mashomola in the context of GL? It is those who come onto the boards, they gift and they settle there. They do not invite, they don't do anything. They hear of others who are making moves on their boards and receiving gifts. They start mourning until their mourning becomes a song to them. They find fault with those who are moving on and succeeding. And the painful thing is that they then start spreading news that GL does not work. Now, I might have woken up to the concept of financial freedom rather late myself, just like Abuti Masemola delayed with his schooling. But I'm not staying there. I am definitely not staying here. I am determined to move with those who are moving. I will do my best for me and for those who dare take my hand and move with me. It doesn't matter whether they were in my team or not. I mean, a few people can attest, they can really give me that testimony that, some of the accounts were moved from the previous space and we lost touch, in terms of lineage, we lost each other. And I don't have that mentality that you are no longer in my lineage, then we are not going to talk. No, I help anyone. The only thing that works against me really is the time, but the commitment is there. But even then, I will send something, a voice note to encourage somebody, and so on and so forth. So whether they are in my grouping or not, I say we are community here. We move together, young and old, and let us make GL work for all of us.
I love that. I love that because so many times I'll get somebody that sends me a picture of their board and they'll say, it's not working, something's wrong, can you go check it out? It must be my board and everybody else seems to be doing okay. And then I have a look at their board and I say, did you bring 2 people? Yeah, I brought 2 people. They send me the board and I can see their one solid color because they brought 2 people, but their 2 people don't even have a half a ring. So it doesn't end there, and that's the same as just staying in one place and not moving. We have to make sure that the people that we're inviting are supported or help them because we brought them in. We have to take responsibility and be accountable for the people that we brought in. And anybody can learn. I mean, there's a reason why they said yes in the first place. They might go to other people like I did in the beginning and get denied point blank and then lose confidence and then not want to carry on. But you get back up, you dust yourself off. You remember why you said yes in the first place and you carry on. So many people still approach me and say, oh, I'm really struggling to find my 2. Don't you want to help me? And I'm like, why would I help you when I've got a whole team of people that I've brought in? I would rather help them because that's who I'm going to help. And we all need to have that mentality. Obviously, I want to help everybody, but you got to look after the people that you brought in first and make sure that they can duplicate the process and not stay in grade 1 until they're 40 years old.
Yeah. Each one doing what they are supposed to do. That is really the thing. Each one doing what they are supposed to do.
So let me piggyback on what you guys just said, because I've said it like this in the past. Once you introduce somebody to Gift of Legacy, that's when your responsibility to them to make sure that they have the best possible experience begins. And I sent this text out to a friend of mine yesterday. He goes, well, I need a little bit of help. Okay, willing to help. I'm willing to help. I'm like you, Mpho. I'll help anybody. If they somehow get in touch with me some way, it's fine. I don't care. I love it because I know that it's one gigantic moving organism. And one thing that I want to show here, you've talked about so many good things. Patience is one of them. And people don't, if we go back to the very first story, they have syndromes about patience. Obviously they do. We all do. No matter how fast things are going, we always want it to go faster. That's just a fact of life. We live in a microwave society anyways. But, the patience factor needs to be at a super high level, because you're going to get on some teams, and I call them teams. You guys, we call them boards, but it's a team. On the board that you're on, it's a team of people designed to do one thing. That's to create momentum on the board, help each other to do so, and move closer to the legend position. This is that simple. And then we rinse and repeat and do it over again. So, for me, the patience factor is one of the key components that someone can develop in order to make this work. I've been on boards that have taken over 30 days. I've been on boards where I was started out as a gifter, and by the nighttime I was 4 gifts into a legend position. They
Mhm.
all work a little bit differently, but I do believe that if I introduce somebody to Gift of Legacy, I'm going to take the time to walk them through everything. I'm going to show them where the academy is. I'm going to show them where to find their own answers because I'm a big fan of that. I'm going to introduce them to the 3 Telegram boards. I'm going to put them in a position to have the best possible experience so that we can minimize. I mean, I won't say avoid. We can minimize those kinds of texts that say, "Hey, it's not working," because their expectation has been set properly in the beginning. To be patient, because the circles on the boards, when we watch the presentation, whether it's a 7-minute or the ones that all the beautiful presenters do, and so on and so forth, I like to tell my folks this: look, when you're looking at that, those circles on the board are not just graphics. They're real live human beings that have lives. You don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know why there might be a delay. I get it all the time. "Oh my gosh, there's been 3 red boxes. Nobody's confirming anybody." Calm down. The communication is going down between the legend and the gifter, or the gifter and the legend, in a 2-way conversation, and you don't know what's going on in their lives right now. These are not just graphics. These are humans. And humans, when there's humans involved, there's always going to be a bump in the road here and there. We just have to be patient and understand it. And I'm a huge fan of what Tim has said in the past. Look, if it takes a full year to see one cycle through the boards at $42,700, are you going to be upset? Come on, an extra 42,000 USD in a year is amazing. Amazing. So patience. That's what we need. I love your stories. And one last thing before you continue on. I mean, I think people learn through stories. I would love to have you talk to my group. The problem is it's probably 3 a.m. when I talk to my group for you. But one thing I want to piggyback on that came up a little bit ago about how you approach people, and it's different every time. And I picked up on this. I'm the exact same way. And I think anybody who's really listening is the exact same way. Your listening skills are tuned in to who you're speaking with, to be able to listen for the opportunity to help them, to help some problem that they have, that Gift of Legacy could be a potential benefit to them for. I just hear it. I'm like you. I can be in a normal conversation over coffee or something like that, and someone will say something and it just, hits my reticular activating system in the front of my brain. And I go, wow, this could be something that would help them. I have several people that I've introduced that are that way. And I just love the fact that you're so in tune because your listening skills are so high. It's such an important thing. Such an important thing.
That is so true.
I also think that comes with time. Like I said in the beginning, when I was going around and saying my thing and freaking myself out, and the more I've done it and the more gifts I've gotten, it's just a no-brainer. It's in a conversation where it comes out. And I'll use my trip to Egypt as a perfect example. Before I went, I was like, I am going to get all 20 people that I'm on that trip with to join Gift of Legacy before I leave Egypt. And then when I was in Egypt, I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing this because I'm kind of cross-recruiting on my friend's trip. But through the time, when I started speaking to people one-on-one, it did come up organically. And especially because the story that I have that got me to Egypt was through the gifting platform. So it just came about organically, and I didn't want to try, but 2 people from my Egypt trip landed up signing up as a result of me just casually mentioning what I do. I wasn't recruiting, I wasn't trying to convince anybody of anything because I didn't feel that it was the right space to have those kinds of conversations, but it ended up organically happening anyway. Somebody joined me, they actually recognized me after I was telling them, and they were like, oh my gosh, I've seen you on a Zoom. And then they actually spoke to somebody else on the trip, and that somebody else has joined as their invitee. So it really just happens. Wow. And I think the main thing is let go of expectations and relax. When you're having a coffee with someone and you feel like you're getting nervous about trying to approach them about it, don't. Just let it go. Enjoy the coffee.
Yeah.
Get the connection between the 2 of you sparked again. And then in maybe 1 or 2 coffee dates time, it will come in casually, but it always does. I think we just get so wound up about the judgments of people and the expectations we have of ourselves in explaining it the right way, and then the expectation of the person, that it just goes crazy and haywire, and we never get the message across, and we don't land up listening to the other person and find a way that we can approach them, because we're so busy in our head thinking about what we're going to do, we actually might have missed what they were telling us about the fact that they can't pay school fees this month, which would have been a perfect opportunity to go in there and say, well, So yeah, the more we relax and the more we listen, the more opportunities we'll have to share. And I say share is so important, because sharing you do from the heart, selling you do kind of from the head.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, can I do the last story?
Yes. And then
Let's do the last one.
Yay.
Okay, I think we've been talking to us as the community, people who are already in the community. So I just want to do the last story to talk about the prospects, the people that we might want to invite. And yeah. So the last one is what I've called Nkakadia and the Rat syndrome. Nkakadia's mother had cooked meat for very important visitors. Upon her return from the fields, the meat had been mysteriously eaten. No one, including Nkakadia, admitted the scandal. Nkakadia's sister Pulani and a rat had seen Nkakadia eating the meat. So Nkakadia's sister decided to keep the secret so that his brother could be saved from what could have been the most horrible experience for him up to that point. But the rat had other plans. Early the next morning, the rat needed to go out on its errands, but found that the dew was rather thick, cold, and wet. The rat then called upon Nkakadia to remove the dew, and to this Nkakadia expressed utter disapproval. Said the rat to Nkakadia, I know that you ate your mother's meat yesterday. If you do not remove the dew for me, I will tell her the truth, and you and I know the trouble that you will see. Poor Nkakadia had to remove the dew for the rat. The rat then gave him an instruction for the following and subsequent mornings. Whenever you hear me sing, Nkakadia, 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 Mpho, Mpho, you must without fail sing back. Hi no hayo poka, hi no hayo poka, warito Mpho. Basically, it was a call from the rat calling Nkakadia and a demand for acknowledgement of the message. Then he said, I will know that you have heard my command to come out and to serve me. I will accept your singing as a confirmation that you are coming. Otherwise, I will tell your mother that the meat she prepared for her guest found its way into your greedy stomach. Nkakadia served the rat for so many days against his will. One day, his mother could see that there was something wrong with my boy. So she asked him, my son, you are getting thinner and thinner. You look very unhappy too. Is something bothering you? And he said, no, Mama, all is well. But all was not well. But one day, Pulani, having observed the pain her brother was living through, took courage and asked her brother to confess his error to their mother. She said, Mama is very kind. I know she might punish you at first. I'm not sure. We don't know what she will do, but we know that she is very kind. Take the punishment, rather take the punishment and move on. You will really, I would like to encourage you to confess. The boy, who indeed could not take it anymore, told his mother about the meat he had eaten and apologized profusely. The mother lovingly forgave her son. He thanked his sister for encouraging him to face his error and move on. For some reason, the rat did not witness this happy transaction. The following morning, he came as usual and sang his commanding song. And Nkakadia came very sarcastically And the rat said, what? Say what? You know what I'm going to do without delay. You and I know the trouble that you will see once I have disclosed to your mother the shameful story of how you ate all that meat, you rascal. And the boy smiled and said, go ahead, Mr. Rat. Go ahead and make a fool of yourself. Tell my mom and tell her the stale news. Then we will see whose shameful story it will be between you and me. So the rat, having understood the whole shame that was waiting to embrace him, left Ngagadia alone. This story was told by my father to us, and he ended the story by urging us that always we should confess our errors and ask for forgiveness so that we will not be enslaved by external forces and conscience. And from this story, what do we learn? A lot of things, actually. But I could take just a few things. Firstly, that we are human and capable of error. Part of that error can be anything. It can be greed, it can be thinking without, doing without thinking, or the Makwanyani syndrome, too much enthusiasm, not thinking properly about what we want to do. But then we should also know, this is what Father said to us, we should know that there is kindness, there is forgiveness, and the most important thing that he said is what I want to talk about tonight, restoration. After that, who was Ngagadia in the context of gift of legacy? Most of us, many of our prospective community members, will be like Ngagadia in terms of the many errors that we have committed, especially in the area of finance and investing, okay? Many of us made a lot of mistakes and we lost money. And then we decided to stay in our cocoons like Ngagadia and not willing to expose our weaknesses and take whatever, be willing to take a risk again. As far as Ngagadia was concerned, he had blown it and there was no hope for him. His sister comes up and plays a crucial part in her brother's life. She shows him the pain of the status quo. And here I'm actually paraphrasing something from a business book that I was studying from many years ago. She shows him the pain of his status quo and the possible future benefits of changing it. And fortunately, Ngagadia takes the input because indeed the pain of status quo was now completely unbearable at that stage. The mouse was really just harassing him too much. So as long as we can make excuses around our painful current situations, as long as we can still make a plan around it, we may never change, But sometimes it actually takes a mountain, a troubled sea, or a desert for us to wake up and then change our lives. I pray that for all of us, there will be a Pulani in our lives. The Pulani who will come and say, hey, wake up, forget about the past. Be willing. It can be maybe to love again or to take a risk again. In terms of GL, take a risk, If you think this is a risk, the risk that you're going to take is $100. Will you die because you have lost $100? Look at what you stand to gain. And this is now the showing of the possible future benefits, and really just talking to people and saying, come on, my sister, come on, my brother, come to the Zoom call, listen and make a decision. It will, if it works for one person, it can work for all of us, because it means, like Ken said, this thing is repeatable. If somebody can do it successfully, someone can, another person can, okay? The red is that tiny but powerful voice in you that keeps you enslaved by the pain, the shame, and embarrassment that you have passed through, the mistakes that you have done. The enslaving voice that tries to capture us and hold us hostage until when, God knows. It might perpetually remind us how much money we have lost before trying to make money. It might try to keep us away from anything that even looks like a gift of legacy. But this voice can be very loud in many of us, you know? So we need to conquer ourselves. We need to conquer circumstances like these ones that was brought about by the rat in the life of Nkagadia, you know? And because of time, I want to stop that commentary right there and invite comments from Candz and Alan.
I just think, yeah, you've got it so right, eh? That rat is that monkey mind, the monkey mind that keeps telling you why you can't succeed. And that's from a society that's, you know, made us compete with each other at school and made us want to be the top of the class instead of making sure that we all do well together. So it's been such a joy. The comments have been amazing. You are an absolute hit, Mpho, and it's been such an honor to share the stage with you this evening. And everybody's already excited for part 2 next week. So I'm just so happy that we did this, and I'm so happy that you contacted me yesterday.
Thanks, Candz. Sorry about that. 9 o'clock alarm. Sorry.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add. I mean, I really don't. That's unusual. But I've loved all the stories, and they're so meaningful. And what a great way to learn. What a great way to learn. I did a little study under a guy that everybody probably has heard of before. His name is Les Brown. And he is such a tremendous storyteller, and he can, you know, you're hanging on every word. And I found myself right on the edge of my chair here tonight, learning from the stories, because there's just wisdom in all of that. And I just loved it. So thank you so much for sharing with everybody. And I do too. Look forward to next week. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And in the spirit of keeping it on the hour so that we can translate it, I think we've done pretty well. So amazing. Your stories are incredible. And, you know, Gift of Legacy is proudly South African, and we should spread our African stories far and wide for the whole world and the global community to connect to. Big love from our heart to yours.
Yes.
Everybody be blessed. See ya.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Tommy.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.